Welcome to Uncovered Podcast. I have the great man back, the man who I co-created this podcast for, and then he got busier on Mondays than he's ever been in his life. It's Bharat Sundaresan. I'm Jarrod Kimber. Sorry if you were trying to listen to this or follow this on YouTube. I got stuck on another podcast. I wrote 3 full articles on that IPL game.
Wow, really?
Then got to the point where, well, because of the rain break. So I wrote a piece thinking Gujarat probably win. I've got this Saha piece. I'm going to write this. It's really cool. I love Ridham and Saha. It'll work great.
Yeah.
Then when the game got shortened a little bit, I was like, ooh, I reckon Chennai's got a better chance of winning here. I'll just start a little cheeky Ajiki Rahane / Chennai season piece here and how everything's fallen into place. And then I watched the last over. So I know that you've seen basically nothing. And probably everyone in our comments has seen a little bit more, but it was a fascinating game. Not just because I wrote 3 articles, I could have written about 7, but not all games are fascinating. But big thanks to Aditya, Shikhar, Paul, Satya, Aryan, Gamma, Pranjal, Mewtwo. I don't know how to say that one.
YouTube.
Anshuman, Vikas, everyone for coming into the chat. So if you are on YouTube and you want to ask us something at the end, feel free to send through a super chat. We probably won't get time for normal questions, although there's some great questions in there already as well. Okay, so Gujarat do very, very well. Shubman Gill is dropped early on again. So I think that's the 3rd time recently he's been dropped early on in an innings, but it doesn't cost them as much. There's a very good stumping by MS Dhoni in there as well, but it's clear that the Chennai spinners aren't getting as much spin, right? So it's going to be down to Deepak Chahar and whatever happens to Deshpande. I felt that they were probably Gujarat about 10 or 15 runs short. I think if Shubman Gill had stayed in, it would have been absolute carnage. They keep sending Hardik Pandya in towards the end, but it's not that he's seeing the ball terribly, but he's having real trouble timing it early on in his innings. And when you come in for the last 15 balls of the game and it takes you 6 or 7 balls to hit one, I think they might have had more luck had they thrown in David Miller or Rashid Khan or anyone else. But they end up with the highest score ever in an IPL final. But, and I think someone put this in the comments before, they were asking what my thoughts were on the competition. I'm going to remember this as the highest scoring IPL competition ever. This felt like something had changed within T20 cricket. And I'd have to go back and have a look if it's the same everywhere, if it's just a one-off thing in IPL. But it did feel to me like everything had just gone up like, a 1/3 of a run to, a half a run more in every over. And sort of everything we know that, what is 140 a good strike rate anymore? Probably not. And it wasn't that long ago we thought it was. So a few things have changed from that point of view. Gujarat obviously doing really well. Rain starts to come in, hammering it down. Also, I know you're an umpire, and I've done a little bit of ground crew over the years. And actually, the one thing I tried to train for in cricket was to be a pitch curator. I don't know if you know that. There's a fun thing. I don't know anything about it though anymore because I've forgotten everything. But watching the ground crew try and put the covers on while it was pissing down with rain as the wind was blowing up was absolutely hilarious. The rain goes on for so long that when you watch the Olympics and you're watching it on like one of like channel 23 of the Olympics.
Yeah.
And there's no commentary or anything.
Yeah.
And there's just a break and someone's just out there sweeping the handball court or something.
Yeah.
I look up at one stage and that's what Sky has on, right? There's rain and there's no commentators. There's no commentators from India. There's no commentators from England. It's just, I swear, 15 minutes of rain. And that was after they had a rap concert halfway through. I really enjoy rapping in other languages. I don't know why. I always have. I don't understand, obviously, anything anyone's saying, but I really do enjoy the sound of rap in other languages. So I was a big fan of that. It looks like they're getting to the point where it's going to be too wet on the field. They show a close-up at one stage of one of the practice wickets, and it just looks like there's no one's going to be able to run on it because it's hard underneath. And you can see how it's got like half an inch of softness on top. And all the divots that all the bowlers have done in their warm-ups now look like golf divots. Like it looks like the whole thing, the whole shape of it is gone. Anyway, they end up needing, 175 at the end? You're better with those sorts of details than I am. But I think it was 175-ish at the end of 15 overs. Does that sound right? Have I made that number up?
No, you're absolutely on top.
Yeah. That was the point, the first time in the game where I was like, Chennai's got a chance. Because if you're going up against a team that is very good at taking wickets, a wet ball is a huge advantage. And now you don't have to worry about their wickets as much because you've got 5 less overs to worry about the wickets. Someone just said it was 170.
170. There you go.
There you go. That's close enough. And so I think at that stage, you have the situation where it was perfectly set up for Chennai, but I thought Gujarat did very, very good at certain times in that game. And I certainly thought that Gujarat probably gave him 2 to 3 chances of winning it. But there was the moment when I'll try and get the thing. It was the 4th last over, which I suppose is the end of the 11th, I suppose, at that stage, where it was 6, 6, 6, 4, 6 in 5 balls. And it was the end of one over and the start of the next over. And at that stage, you're like, okay, so Chennai's won. And I think that was the first time when I felt they were massively in front. A lot of the rest of the innings, I thought they were marginally in front. That was the point I thought they were massively in front. And of course, Mohit Sharma takes 2 wickets in the next 2 balls. MS Dhoni comes out. And like everyone's like, oh, well, he's going to hit the winning runs and blah, blah, blah. No, Golden Duck. Or was Golden Duck first? The whole game is such a blur to me because it took 19 hours. It's like the India-New Zealand game that you and I commentated in the World Cup. Do you remember that? The 2-day, 1-day.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
We commentated like 80% of that, and I couldn't tell you half of what happened because it was everything that went on around it and having to work on it was it was a bit like that with this game. Anyway, Mohammad Shami bowls a very, very good over, and then they need 13 off 6. I've done a whole video, you'll be shocked to know, Bharat, on just the last over. Because it's
sure you have.
A fascinating thing. So you got Mohit Sharma, right? Comeback boy. You've got, I didn't even focus on the batters, but I could have done another 500 words of Shivan Dubé's and also Ravi Jadeja's late career hitting. You've got the fact he chose 6 Yorkers in a row, despite the fact that his comeback has largely been about the back of the hand slower ball.
Yeah.
And that he got away with the first 4, 2 really good ones, one that could have gone for runs, another one should have gone for runs. And then he makes another 2 mistakes at the end and they get home. And I feel bad for him because even the mistakes he made before that, they were bad, but they could have gone in his favor. Jadeja could have mishit one of them to a fielder.
Yeah.
That last one, it's a double mistake because he gets the line and the length wrong. And if they still needed 6 to win, there was a lot of misfielding because of the wet and fielders falling over and stuff. If they needed 6 to win, there's no way you would have been able to hit a full toss down the leg side that low for 6, right? It would have been almost an impossible shot to be able to do from Jadeja to get it up and over, unless he ramped it. Fantastically weird game. Ambati Rayudu becomes the second player to win 6 IPL titles. Him and Rohit Sharma both have 6. Ridham Saha has now made 150 in 2 IPL finals, and they're the 2 he's lost. Ajinkya Rahane continues to come in and hit the ball everywhere. Shubman Gill looks like he was going to go absolutely ballistic and win the game. Noor Ahmed outbowled Rashid Khan at times, I thought. What have you seen? What do you feel? What do you want to ask me that you think I may be able to? I can also give you a little bit on the Durham versus Nottingham game, because eventually Sky went away from their blank screen to show.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can just call it quits and tell our wonderful listeners and viewers that that's the show. Like, what else do you need to hear from me about? Right? Like, I think you've summed it up perfectly.
Oh no, I missed one. Sorry, someone just came in with a very, very good one actually that I did forget, which was Sundaresan.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he was the top scorer, wasn't he?
But I thought he batted really, really good. Yeah, so I think I forgot that one. Someone else has said that there should be a documentary on Ambati Rayudu's career. To be honest, halfway through this game, that was like one of my drafts that I didn't start, where I was like, could I tell his entire career somehow and get to this point? What a ridiculous thing. But yeah, I thought, I don't know how you felt about the IPL. I thought these were the 2 best teams coming in. And one of my many drafts, I was talking about, there was a game, I reckon it was around the 10th or 11th game, when I was doing the power rankings. And while I was writing them, I had Chennai at 1st or 2nd. And I think they were 4th on the table at that point. And they might have been 3rd on the table, but they were playing Kolkata. And I was like, I just feel this is the best team. But I just didn't have the confidence to go with it. And then Kolkata beat them. And I was like, well, I can't do it now, because everyone is going to think I'm an idiot. But I looked at their team, and what I could tell is that they had, Stokes hadn't worked. Deepak Chahar, basically, first half of the year, shouldn't have bowled or didn't bowl. Obviously, the rest of their seam bowling was all over the shop. Moeen Ali, Ravi Jadeja, and Rayudu had down years with the bat, right? But they were still really good. When our teams, everyone's playing really good, I almost don't trust that as much. Which, to be fair, at a certain point, I think I have to trust Gujarat because they've been really good for 2 years. But there's a part of me that goes, none of their players ever seem to be out of form, right?
Yeah.
Matthew Wade aside, everyone always seems to be in form for this team, right? That didn't feel like the case for Chennai, and yet they were still winning, which really gives me something that I thought, from that perspective, there was something a little bit extra there. But I think either of those teams would have been winners. Do you get extra book sales on a day like this when, with Donny if he wins? Like, it's a bit of a facetious question, but is that legit? Like, will you sell more copies today?
Definitely, and that's how book sales work, right, Jarrod? And now that it is has been printed in other languages as well, thankfully I haven't translated those. You don't want to be reading my Hindi or Marathi or any of the other languages the book has appeared in. It does sell more because he's suddenly the talk of the town, right? I mean, that's especially when you write a book about one person or it's about one like a major star like MS Dhoni, and all the speculation about like, is this his last IPL? Is he going to move on? And I mean, we could someday do an entire show about that, and I'm sure we will. With MS Dhoni, I always look for little clues. I don't know whether he let it slip or he did mention when he was talking about getting emotional while facing or while when the whole crowd was chanting his name during the opening game. And then once again, I mean, it happened in every ground he played at, and obviously every time he played in Chennai. He did tell Harsha Bhogle, it happened in my last game in Chennai. So I think with MS Dhoni, he wouldn't have taken a call, but he'll make sure that before the next auction, you might see an Instagram post or a tweet or something like that comes through where, he might just call it a day. I think he'll also taking everything else into consideration, not just his. He said, "Yeah, it'll come down to his body," but I think where he is in life, and he is a very, he has a great hold over his life, and he believes a lot in his own destiny. So he's not the kind of guy who, even if it means that you know, uh, he'll want to do it for Chennai and his fans and his team, like he said in the post-match presentation. The only reason I see him coming back and playing another season, though, it will be for more cricketing reasons. In terms of if he feels that with Raidu gone now, and like you said, Moeen Ali and these guys, it's not Moeen Ali in particular. He's been such a mm, vital cog for Chennai Super Kings in the last few years. We don't know where his cricket will be in a year's time. I think he might then just decide to stay back just for that reason. Like, it felt like Ben Stokes was brought in to be handed over the keys, right? Like to be the next captain and lead CSK going forward. But we don't know. Like Ben Stokes was injured for a large part of the season, and then after a point he just didn't fit in because Patirana really took over that fourth foreign players role, and it was we couldn't leave him out. So I think he'll wait and see how the next few months go out, not just with himself but with Chennai, and what kind of team they have to kind of move forward with. And if then he feels that he still has a role to play, he'll stick around. That's how I see the MS Dhoni story playing out.
And your book is called
The Dhoni Touch. It's still out there. I
No,
think people
look,
are.
I think you're right. I think the Stokes. I mean, the Jadeja Stokes angle is the big angle, right?
Yeah,
Jadeja's given the captaincy, doesn't really work for him.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
kind of gives it back, I suppose. I don't know how it all worked internally, but certainly it was passed back to Donny. They bring Stokes in. Even if Stokes is fully fit, I'm not convinced he's a bowler in the IPL level, certainly at this age. Whether he'll ever be able to bowl, what would he need to be able to bowl 2 overs a game to give them
At least.
the flexibility that they need? I'm not sure they'll ever get that out of him. Having said that, purely as an opening bat, he should still, if he has like a Faf du Plessis late, he specializes in T20. There's no reason why he can't still be very, very good at it. And I would say a bit like Faf, he never specialized in T20 cricket. So we don't actually know how good Stokes could be at this format. I find that very interesting. I talked to an insider. In fact, I've got 2 interesting bits of insider from an IPL source. The first one was that the ratings are up 35% this year. And a big part of that was that Chennai and Mumbai both made the finals.
Yes.
And that is a huge, huge difference. I didn't ask actually if Gujarat helped as well. If that audience is big enough to sway it as well, especially because of the back-to-back nature and everything else. But they were telling me that. And the other thing they were saying is, I was saying, well, if Chennai is good next year, but Donny isn't there, does that affect the ratings? And they said, we're still thinking he will play next year. Right? So we don't know.
You'll never know.
And he does that on purpose, right?
He does. I mean, that's just how he's lived his life, really. He again, like I said earlier, he is such a strong believer in his own destiny that he doesn't let anyone or anything else control what decisions he makes with his own life. Or you've seen that on the cricket field as well. As captain, his decisions are his decisions. We've seen it for nearly last 15, 17 years now as captain. So I think, it'll come down to that. I'm not saying he won't. He's not going to play next season, but it's not a guarantee either that he will play just because he said so in the presentation ceremony. He will leave all. For now, all doors seem open, but like we'll have to see how that plays out. But I mean, in terms of even though I didn't watch the entirety of the final live, I was following it. Look, I am leaving for England in a couple of days, and I need to get my priorities right. If I tell my wife, look, I'll be up through the night watching the IPL final, and then in a day I'll leave you for 2 months, I don't think it works out well, as you know, Jarrod. So you have to pick your battles, and I also had to help her out with some stuff for her school. So I was doing that. I was being a good husband for a change. It's been 10 years in the making, so finally I'm there, I guess. Strange final in terms of how it played out. Is it safe to say this is Ajinkya Rahane's first ever IPL win? I'm pretty sure he's never been part of an IPL win before, because the years he was with Rajasthan, I don't think they won, unless he was part of. No, I don't think he was part of Mumbai when they won in 2013.
It's a good question. I actually found it really hard today to find how many titles different players had won. So I think
Ayushman says it was his first win. So
yeah. So I worked it out. I'm going to ask you a bunch of players that you will know.
Yeah.
So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 players who have won 5 titles. Right? 2 of those have now won 6. We talked about that already. That's Rohit Sharma and Rayudu. Donny is on 5. Hardik Pandya stays on 5. Jasprit Bumrah has 5. Karan Pollard has 5. Do you know who the other player is who has 5 titles? Don't look at the comments, because someone will get this.
No. I'm not like I'm gonna. I'm sure Malinga was part of 5 IPLs, wasn't he?
4.
Oh, just 4. Oh yeah, he wasn't part of the last.
Malinga, Raina, Harbhajan Singh all have 4. I don't know if other players do as well.
So who are the other 5? Who are the ones with 5? I'm not looking down.
Donny, Hardik, Jasprit, Polly, and then the other player, who is in every way nothing like any of the names that I have read out so far. He could not be any more further removed from that. When he did it, I had to go back and Google his career, because I was like, how on earth has this person played and won 5 titles?
Because Partha Patel.
No. Ooh. I don't actually know how to pronounce this person's surname, because he's that unfamous that I'm sure I've said it before, but it's not a name I've had to say more than 3 or 4 times in my life.
All right. I think I'm going to, what's that thing you do? Ask the audience to help
I think
me
you see it. I'll put it up on the screen here.
Oh, of course it's Karan Sharma. I thought of Karan Sharma. Or is it Aditya Tare? Who's it?
Aditya Tare.
Aditya Tare. Oh, of course. Yeah. Bombay captain. Ranji captain.
He has.
That's right.
5 titles for 2 different teams. I think I'm trying to remember who the other one was. It was 4 for Mumbai and 1 for someone else. Sunrisers. Went to the Sunrisers. He's almost got more titles than he has runs in finals.
Or maybe maybe I don't know how many matches Aditya Tare played. He had that. I mean, of course, he played that famous innings to take Mumbai into the final against Rajasthan when he hit the six of the last ball when they had to chase like a big target in a very in few overs to qualify in terms of run rate. So yeah, Aditya
I can
Tare.
tell you. So he has 5 titles and 339 career runs. I mean, it's one of the most
Yeah,
remarkable records I've ever
it is.
seen. Right place,
It
right
is.
time. Because I was the reason I found this out is because I was trying to work out how many Saha had. I thought Saha might have been at 3 going to 4, but he was actually 2 going to 3 because
Yeah.
when he made the 100, they lost. Kolkata won that game, and I knew he played for Kolkata, so I got all the
He
details.
was playing for Punjab that year
Yeah,
and he made that
yeah.
100. Yeah, yeah,
Because it actually makes a little bit of sense if he does it, only because he's such an above average role player
yeah.
who's had. But Tare, I was like, what on earth have I found? Anyway, it just shows you how random it is. But my question, the other reason I asked this specifically, other than to embarrass you, was we know that at the moment it doesn't matter that Dhoni has less than Rohit,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And we know that there's a bunch of really good players with similar amounts, right?
Hmm.
One day, when we get more and more teams and it gets harder and harder to do it, when we go back and split the best players, one of the things that people are going to look at is how many titles you won, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that at all plays into MS Dhoni's thing? I almost feel like it's too early for IPL or any franchise league really to think about that sort of stuff. But Dhoni's not a normal thinker, right? He does think legacy and he does think beyond the obvious.
I think the only reason I would say no is because Rohit and Hardik, they have won 6 titles, but not for the same team, right? Like Rohit's first title came with Deccan Chargers, and then for subsequently he's led 5 or they led them to 5 IPL trophies, or at least 4 of them. And similarly with Hardik Pandya, won a lot with Mumbai, and then of course won last year with Gujarat. So I don't think those things really matter to MS Dhoni. He's not a stats guy to start with, but he does
That's not a stat,
remember.
though, is it? That's a legacy.
It's a
That's
legacy
the only
stat.
reason. I'd
Yeah,
never ask about stats with him because I
I
think
know
you're right.
exactly. Yeah. No, having said that, he is one of those guys. He has such a sharp memory about everything he's done in cricket. Like maybe he will not be able to tell you his exact strike rate or his average, but if you ask him one of his players about one of his players in a major tournament, he'll tell you exactly what their strike rate or their average was. Like he remembers things very differently to the average sports person, I guess. Even his numbers. So I don't think that could be a reason for MS to want to just stick around. And look, I mean, MS could have. It came down to that last over when Dan Christian was on strike and Pune were playing Mumbai, if you remember, and Steve Smith was captain. So he got very close to winning that sixth trophy, which would have meant Rohit would have been at 5 and Dhoni would have been at 6. But in a strange way, I think MS Dhoni would prefer the fact that he's won only with Chennai because his connection with Chennai is. I mean, I wrote put it in the book as well. It completely changed the demographic of sport fandom in India or cricket fandom in India. The way he has connected with that city, coming from the other end of the country, no connection at all with Chennai before the Chennai Super Kings thing happened. So it's bizarre and it's incredibly cool how that has worked out. I mean, Chennai is very good with accepting people from other states and making them their heroes. I mean, just look at some of their greatest movie actors. Rajinikanth, for example, the original Talaiva is not originally, he's not Tamil, but the way they embraced him once he moved there and he became the superstar, it's kind of people always draw parallels between that and MS Dhoni, but MS Dhoni is different because when it comes to cricket, it's different. I mean, Tendulkar was loved in Chennai because he had such a great record there, and he always will say Chennai was his second favorite venue after Mumbai, or it's always on par.
But that is different because he's still not representing Chennai.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
I think what Dhoni did was he basically makes Modi's original plan make sense, right? Because there was a lot of movement. Do you remember Ganguly was at Kolkata, despite the fact Ganguly wasn't a plus T20 player. There was a lot of movement towards, getting the local players and everything else. But actually, for franchise sport to work, what they never tell you is you actually want the opposite to happen. You want some, Cuban baseballer to come in and that guy to be the most famous person in your city and him to embrace your city and you to embrace him and all that sort of stuff, because you can replace that, whereas actually finding local players, getting them into your team and everything else, that's a lot trickier thing. There's always going to be a star coming through, and as long as you can, do that, and it's a big part of American sports and also, football in Europe as well, that sort of
very much
buy into the culture of the team that you go to. And in Dhoni's case, he kind of invented that in the IPL.
And in cricket, in Indian cricket. So Indian cricket has historically been very parochial in that sense. So, and yeah, it had never, yes, I mean, there are people in India who support their Ranji Trophy teams, but it was never, so that's why it's taken quite a while for the IPL as a tournament uh, to capture that aspect of fandom where people are so invested in their respective city-based teams. I mean, I'm not saying it didn't happen. I have friends who had like Deccan Chargers tattoos on different parts of their body way back then, and then of course the franchise folded or became something else. So I don't know what they've done with the tattoo. I was just chatting with my that specific friend, and she was very happy. She's now moved to the US, and she won a fantasy league for the first time. And also maybe she didn't ask.
Whoa, whoa.
And one of the greatest songs of all time.
Just absolutely brilliant. I still like there's a couple of really stupid songs that I've never been able to get out of my head. One is Warrnambool, We All Love Warrnambool, which is a song about a tiny little city in Victoria, and that was the song that they used to have when the racing carnival was on. And the other one is Go the Chargers, Go the Chargers, Go.
Yeah.
And because they're so stupid, but they're so earwormy. It's absolute genius. Both the people who came up with those should be given a lot more money. Yeah, I also just hilarious that someone has a Deccan Chargers tattoo in general. But yeah, I look, I think you're right. I want to talk to you about Gujarat for a minute. Obviously, they haven't gone back to back, but is what Gujarat almost feels like. Looking back on it, I sort of think to myself, why wasn't it one of the original cities? And I know India's changed a lot since the IPL started, so I know that it's not a traditional city in the same way that some of the other ones are. Why wasn't that a city? Is it Hardik Pandya? We both know, not the most respected person in Indian cricket even a year and a half ago, right? Things have changed so quickly. The way that people used to talk about him off the record was not nice, right? Doesn't seem to be that case anymore. The future of that, it almost feels like Gujarat is like, I don't know, the new Indian team at the moment. Is that just in my head, or is that a vibe that is going on? I mean, partly it's just because they've had success, and if you're between the age of 5 and 12 and a team's good for a couple of years, chances are you'll support them no matter where you're from.
I think it also has a lot to do with Hardik Pandya and the fact that it already looks inevitable that he will be India's next white ball captain long term. Right, I think that's where the thought of this being the new India or their team being the Indian team of sorts even comes into conversation because of Hardik Pandya. And I guess that Hardik Pandya Ashish Nehra combination is really it's taken over India. I mean, India has won over India, I should say, or Indian cricket fans, just the way they are with each other. Just the way they are on the field. And look, Hardik Pandya has a great story. I mean, like someone said, Ambati Rayudu has had many lives. And it's true though, Ambati Rayudu's career, look, he was earmarked to be the next big thing in the early 2000s. Like he was making India A tours when he was 17 and 16, and he was supposed to be the next big thing. Then the ICL happens and people thought he's gone. All his issues in terms of his temper, we've seen it on the field, off the field. And I know I started talking about Hardik Pandya, and I will come to him, but I've also seen the other side of Ambati Rayudu. This suddenly came to mind when we were talking about Ambati Rayudu. So Isha, my wife, came over to South Africa in 2013 towards the end of the tour. So we were in Durban, and Ambati Rayudu was part of the test squad. He obviously never played test cricket for India. And after that last test, my wife and I went to this. It was like a horse. What do you call it? Like a massive area where you keep horses. My English is gone.
Farm?
Maybe, like, yeah.
A graveyard?
So, no, The
A dog
stables, of
food
course. The
company?
stable. So it was called the stables. It was like one of those fair like things with lots of shops and markets. And like each stable was turned into one of those markets. And my wife and I were walking around, and suddenly I just randomly bumped into Ambati Rayudu and his wife. And thanks, Adarsh, it is a stable. I don't know anything about horses clearly, even though I'm surrounded by them these days. So Ambati Rayudu was there, and he said I knew him sort of. I didn't know him very well, but then he insisted that the four of us sit together and like have a meal together. And I saw the other side, like the side of Ambati Rayudu, you rarely get to see. This is a
Mm.
very genuine, sweet natured thing because he's always so intense on the field and even off it at times. It was good that I got to see that, but subsequently he is a special player. Like when you
Mm.
see him bat, even now, like even
Oh,
though he doesn't play regularly, there's something very special about Ambati Rayudu, and it tells you why nobody was surprised. I mean, nobody should be surprised why he
did
was earmarked as the
did you
next
see the
big thing.
six he hit today?
I have seen
When
clips of it
Mohit
on
bowls
social
the
media.
back of the hand slow ball. So, for those who don't know, who've never played cricket, the reason the back of the hand slow ball is difficult is because the first thing that happens is the ball goes up,
Yeah,
right? And the minute it goes up, you start to think it's a full toss. Then
yeah,
it dips way more than any other ball dips. So, you now have to deal with the fact it went up and down. Then, when it lands, it spins. And what happens is also, because of the lack of pace, you lose your shape. It's
yeah.
so much slower than a normal ball. I can't remember. I did that thing once. I think 85% slower as a cutter and
Mm,
75% slower as a backhand slow ball. Something like that anyway. So it's so much slower, right? Not 75% slower, I should say.
yeah.
25% and 15%. But you have this so your body moves. The ability to stay in the position that you need to do and also
Mm,
track it the way that he did and then play a tennis ball shot.
yeah.
Right? That's a tennis ball shot. That's not a cricket
It,
shot, right? We've all played that on the streets in the backyards, tape ball cricket without the tape ball, rubber ball, whatever it may be. That is when a player plays a shot like that at that stage, that's just a different level of talent, even
oh
when
yeah.
he's past his best.
Oh, very much so. I think he'll go down as one of those Indian batters who had the best wrists of all time, and his incredible hands, and he's a special player to watch. And you in a way maybe he contributed himself to the fact that he didn't play enough cricket for India. For various reasons,
Mm,
not just in white ball cricket, but I thought he could have been a great test player. In another alternate universe, he would have been.
that's what you mean. Yeah.
Timing is everything. But
Was
similarly with Hardik
was
Pandya,
he
I
better
mean,
than Rahane as pure talent?
I would say so. I mean,
He's
purely in
certainly in
terms
that
of batting
conversation, isn't he?
skills. Oh, absolutely. In terms of batting skills,
Mm.
I think he was on par with Virat Kohli. Just in terms of
That's a
skills, I'm
comment.
saying. But obviously, it takes a lot more to become a
Yeah.
superstar in sport, right? That goes for any sport anywhere in the world and in the history of sport. It just skills and talent isn't enough. I mean, that sounds as cliched as it comes, but I think that played a role in it. And again, timing as well, Jared. Look, if Ambati Rayudu say uh, gets picked for India in 2004 when he's 19 or whatever he was back then. Who knows, right? Like things
Mhm.
could turn out. He never goes to the ICL, and he has a longer run. So he's been around for a long, long time with Indian cricket. Like I said, well over 20 years, well before MS Dhoni. And that's the thing, right? He's been in the conversation around Indian cricket well before MS Dhoni, and so him retiring now, it's kind of interesting. So he would have still had a longer. I would be pretty sure to say he would have had a longer first class career, or at least a competitive career, domestic career, or whatever, whichever way you want to put it, than MS Dhoni. Even when MS Dhoni retired. So I think he's a fascinating story. And Hardik Pandya, you're right, till a couple of years ago, or even in 2019 when the whole talk show thing happened, and I was there in Sydney when him and KL Rahul walked onto the or walked towards the nets, and people were booing them, their head down. They just stood around for a while and walked away, and then they were shipped back to India, and it didn't look good at that point.
Mm.
And I think from that point on, he's just the way he's matured. He's become a father. You can just see he's become so much more grounded as a person, and that shows, that shines through in the way he plays his cricket and the way he captains his team. And you can see a lot of MS Dhoni in him in terms of how he leads the side, how he kind of tries to keep things calm. Even though he might have started off as a much more intense character than MS Dhoni, but he seems to have really settled down. And I think that has a lot to do with why Gujarat Titans have so quickly become a very popular team in that sense. Like I said, Ashish Nehra has played a big role in that as well. Despite having Matthew Wade in the ranks, the only reason I say that is maybe the most hated Australian cricketer in India, just because he's clashed with so many Indian players. And I think Matthew Wade is another great story, like the way he has transformed
Mhm.
himself as a person in the last few years.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, fits in with Ambati Rayudu and Hardik Pandya. But no, I think great IPL season for sure. And you're right. I think we've seen the next evolution of T20 batting in this tournament, for sure. I mean, just the way Chennai Super Kings, especially. I mean, for the longest time, they were very rigid in the way they played cricket, right? I mean, they played that very
Mm.
MS Dhoni style of white ball cricket. But the fact that they have evolved as well, they have changed the way they're approaching it. I mean, the likes of Rahane and Shivam Dubey have played a huge role in that happening. So I think,
Rahane,
uh,
just the whole season was just a great troll of everyone
yeah,
who abused him. I mean, and all those
exactly.
people who would like, we'd write like really reasonable things, going, "Well, this is why they're keeping him in the side, blah blah." And everyone's like, "No, he's rubbish. Well, he's not
Yeah,
rubbish. We know he's not rubbish. No,
no.
he's rubbish. He should never play for India again." No, like he's really good. We're not sitting here saying he's not in bad form. But one other thing I want to say is it's a really interesting one, and I can't remember if you and I have talked about this recently, but I know I talked about it with someone
Mm,
about the fact that cricketers end up in really random situations, like playing in lower leagues. I sent out a tweet today that managed to annoy English fans and Indian fans at once, but it wasn't actually what I meant. In fact, I think
mm.
today I also annoyed Pakistani fans. I'm trying to think if there's any other country that I annoyed along the way. I'd have to go back and check. But but the tweet I sent out was essentially that cricket is so weird. You got the IPL final being played,
Mm.
right? 75, 80,000 people in the rain, staying there till 1:30 in the morning, as Kevin Peterson mentioned multiple times. Then you've got in Durham a T20 Plus being played. I said second tier competition, and England fans county fans got very upset. But what second tier?
Mm.
I mean, it's not the major T20 competition in England.
It's
Like there
not,
is,
yeah.
well, depending on whether you count the 100, but I do. But
Yeah.
it's the feeder competition to the 100. Even
Yes,
if
yeah.
you might say, oh, it's more entertaining or I enjoy it more, it's
It's a,
still that's
it,
what.
it's a, s- I mean, it's a Syed Mushtaq Ali of England.
Yeah, yeah.
The Syed Mushtaq Ali tournament. Yeah,
I even like the Baby Bash, right? I think these
yeah,
feeder leagues are great. If I could spend
yeah.
the rest of my time watching feeder leagues, I'd be more than happy. But people get very upset about that. But the point was that I was watching Shaheen Afridi bowl for Nottingham against Durham, right? And
Mm,
at mid on was Alex Hales
mm,
at the same time that the IPL final was on. And I could have even added to this. Noah Ahmed and Josh Little were bowling. It's such a
yeah.
bizarre situation that cricket is in that we still have our best players not available. And you can, if you want to argue with me that Pakistani players shouldn't be playing in the IPL, it's not going to get very far because I think they should be playing in the IPL now. I don't have any issue with them playing in the IPL at all. And also, if you're a rabid Indian nationalist who wants to argue with me, the best way to annoy Pakistan would be to recruit all their players to the IPL so they don't play for Pakistan anymore. So they should be in that competition because it's the best one. But also, Alex Hales is there, right?
Mm,
And so you have this situation where at the same time, some of the best players in the world are not playing in the final, and they're playing in this. No matter how you look at it, a lower competition. It's just a fascinating sport that we've built. That some of the best players on earth can be playing in such varied places at any one time. Anyway,
No,
we
I have a point. No, I
go
have something
give
to
it to me.
add on that. And as always, I might digress with this, but it's
If
a
you
very good
if you
point.
pick another player and go through his whole
No,
20-year
no, no,
career,
I'm not doing a career retrospective for anyone else. But look, what you just said. I mean, Shaheen Afridi bowled. Did England? I'm pretty sure England batted first in the T20 World Cup final. Right? I should know. I was doing commentary on it.
oh my god,
No, they
no,
didn't.
they
I think
batted
Pakistan.
second. They batted
Okay,
second.
fine. But
Yeah.
either way, Shaheen Afridi did bowl the first ball of the World Cup final in the second innings to Alex Hales, right? So you're
Yes.
talking about
Oh
two
yeah, I
guys
forgot
who
about
just,
that. Yeah, they were all
yeah,
together.
exactly, yeah. But I think cricket has always been such a player-centric sport.
Hmm.
That what you just said there, some of the best players in the world were playing the IPL final, whereas the other set of the best players were playing in other tournaments like Shaheen Afridi and Alex Hales were playing, which goes back to this whole point of the Jason Roy story of, like,
Hmm.
people throwing up their hands in the air and saying, "Oh God, this is the end of cricket because Jason Roy." has not signed the England Central contract, but he's going to play US cricket or play
Major League, yeah.
or signed a contract with the Major League. But isn't that how you want to spread the sport? Why are we still stuck in this whole archaic way of thinking where we think the spread of sport means we need more international teams playing? I mean, only if USA win the World Cup does it mean that the USA have arrived in cricket. The world has changed and world is changing in
Mm.
front of us. Why can't we just accept the fact that a World Cup winner and a white ball player of Jason Roy's caliber, him going and playing in the major league is a great thing for US cricket.
Yeah,
It's just the game is spreading, and like you said, the IPL final is
yeah.
happening. Shine Afridi and Alex, you just have more options.
Yeah.
Why?
I mean,
can't
I
that
still
be
think
looked at?
that no other sport would Shaheen Afridi and Alex Hales
Yeah.
not be involved. Like, and it's not, the thing is, I think a lot of people went, oh, he's talking about Shaheen Afridi, but it's also Alex Hales, because Alex Hales is in the top 30 or 40
Yeah,
players in the world. So
absolutely, yeah.
do you know what I mean? Like, if there wasn't
Yeah.
overseas rules in different leagues, it's a fascinating thing. The Jason Roy thing, I've just done a huge podcast on it with Bayram that'll be out on Wednesday, where I talk about the fact that people are very upset about the Jofra Archer thing and him not playing for England. But at the same time, some of those England fans will be supporting their counties while Dutch and Scottish players are not playing in the World Cup qualifier, right?
Oh, yeah, true. Yeah,
And
exactly,
it's always happened, and now it's happening to one of the major teams, and people are noticing it a
Yeah.
bit more. Whereas actually,
Exactly.
you could argue the Kolpak, you could go all the way, so many different things have happened over the years of cricket. I've traced it all the way back to 1788 with Billy Midwinter in my video. But let's take a break, mate, and then after the break, let's talk a little bit about WTC and Ireland. Ireland coming back to where they going? The Lords. Where am I
Lords.
watching that game?
Lords.
Yeah, I've got 2 games in London coming up. Very
True.
excited not to leave my house. If you like what we are making here and you want to know if you can help out, well, you can. On top of asking super chats on our lives, you can also support us through Patreon or buy me a coffee. The more support we can get, the better and more videos we can make. On Patreon, there are plenty of other things we offer too, like a Discord server, the chance to ask questions directly, AMAs, and early versions of our recordings. This channel only exists because people like you help support it. We have to buy equipment, software, pay wages, and my mortgage, I suppose, just to make this stuff happen. And if you don't have any money available to spend, it isn't just your money we want. Shares, likes, retweets, comments, subscriptions, the little bell icon thing, all of it. They help us build and become more professional, make more videos, better videos, all that sort of stuff. So thank you for watching everything we make and for all your support so far. Back to Uncovered, Jarrod and Bharat. So you're coming over to the UK very soon.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to the Oval? The Oval. I just said Lords before the break. Are you going to watch Ireland, England as well? You're doing both?
Technically, I'm not. I'm landing on the afternoon of the 2nd. That game starts on the 1st, or does it start on the 2nd?
I think it starts on the 1st. Is the 1st a
Yeah.
Thursday, isn't it? Yeah, it starts on the
1st
Thursday.
is a Thursday. Yeah, so I leave here on. I think my flight from Adelaide takes off around the time the first ball will be bowled in the Test match. So I'm not sure. I get there on day 2, so I might sneak in for a little bit on day 3. But I have to go watch Australia train as well. So.
Yeah, I'll probably be heading off to. I'll probably go to the press conferences in the morning with Australia, and then head down to the.
Right.
Lords.
So
Because it's actually not that hard to get to Lords. This is a very boring thing that only you and I need to
I
know.
know. I don't know why we're having this chat.
It's not that
but-
far to get to. No, I was just wondering because you're a global cricket guy, and it's we don't get to see
I would
I
love
probably
to
wouldn't have seen them play live since the last time they were at Lords. I saw their first test in Pakistan, then against Pakistan at Malahide. Then I saw them play at Lords. And yeah, I wouldn't have seen them play since they've only played 2 in Bangladesh, 1 in Sri Lanka. Am I missing any others?
Did they
Off the
play
top-
in India against Afghanistan?
In Afghanistan, yeah, that was their second test. So they haven't played a lot of tests. I'm kind of not excited to see them play because we saw them play against Sri Lanka. Obviously, we saw them play against Bangladesh recently.
Bangladesh, yeah.
Yeah, but they're a very good team to cover, and they're a very interesting team. And what they're trying to do as a culture is really interesting. It's just a shame that there's almost nothing. I don't know how, if you're an Irish cricket writer, you would be able to do it. That the economy isn't there to really follow them correctly or anything else. And so, as fascinating as they are, I kind of feel like they just get under talked about, despite the fact that I still think they're probably in a lot of people's second and third favorite teams, right?
It's changing though. I mean, this is around the time on our shows, Jared, with that we plug a young writer because that's what we do. We give back to the game, don't we? Like we're two aging old wise foxes. But no, Nathan Johns does a great job
Yeah,
with
he's doing
Irish
really
cricket.
well. Yeah.
He's brilliant. I mean, I met him for the first time when he came here for the T20 World Cup with his mother. How cute is that? Hey, but having said that, I took my mother-in-law for a few test matches few years ago, the
You
Melbourne
took
and
your
Sydney test. And
mother-in-law
yeah, and Adam
on your
Gilchrist
own,
found
just
it.
you and her.
I mean, my wife was there as well, but
Oh,
like
okay.
it was funny because it did the round. I don't know how people found out. And then one day,
Could you tell
like
people everything?
I don't actually, but like I must have. I don't know. So Adam Gilchrist comes up to me and he says, like, he asked the same question that you did. He's like, "Hey, are you traveling around with your mother-in-law?" I was like, "No, my wife's there as well." I was like, "Oh, cool, cool, cool." Yeah, I think it was a thing. Yeah, and speaking of my mother-in-law, she is arriving tomorrow, but with my father-in-law. So I don't think maybe I'll take them to watch some footy once I'm back from England. But I have no idea why I'm speaking about my mother-in-law. But Nathan Johns, like I said.
Yeah.
Uh, a lovely young man and does great work with Irish cricket. Such enthusiasm, like he lives and breathes every ball that Ireland face. He certainly did in the qualifiers that met him through, and also then he came back and he did some of the main the the games, the top 10, whatever it's called in the T20 World Cup, the
Second
main
round.
format, the second round. Yeah, that's right, the main league. And so no, I mean he does some great work, so you should keep following him, and I think he will be at Lords. So if you haven't met him, Jared, you'll
I haven't
definitely
met him,
bump
no.
into him.
He's sort of,
Oh
I feel like it's the last, with that World Cup, certainly I noticed him a lot more. But even then, occasionally, I'd see some of his articles pop up on Twitter and everything
yeah.
else. There's been some good writers, obviously,
Mhm.
over the years, but I don't, it just, there isn't enough to anyone to be on the cricket beat. And
Yes. Yeah.
so, as far as I'm aware, there isn't a Crick Info or a Crick Buzz Irish
No.
writer. We 99.94, we had a plan to do it, but it was a bit further down, right? And
Yeah.
that's kind of where they've stayed. And there is the pinch blocker story, of course, is absolutely fascinating. Lorcan Tucker's rise is
Mm.
exhilarating.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever been that happy to be wrong about a player before. I was like, this guy's going to be 26, 27 average, but he's going to play some great innings. We're all going to talk about how fun he is, but we'll all forget about him. It's like, he's already way better than that. Even if he
Oh,
plateaus from here, he'll have a better peak than that.
oh, yeah. I think I saw glimpses of him during the T20 World Cup, and all very impressive. I mean, for so long it's been in a in a way like the early years of Kenyan cricket, right? It's been about three or four players
Mm.
mainly, right, over the years, maybe extended to five. But just the way. Where can we read Nathan Jones? I think it's Nathan Jones. Isn't Nathan Jones someone else? I think Nathan
I mean,
Jones.
there is a man named Nathan Jones. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Nathan Jones is the former WWE guy. Sorry. Nathan Jones is who I'm talking about. I think he writes for the Irish Times, but he's also had a few articles up
Irish Times.
published
Yeah.
in Crick Buzz these days. So
Yeah.
follow him on Twitter.
It's Nathan R. Johns,
Yes. Yeah.
Johns, on
Yeah.
Twitter. You can find it. This is the best plug
That,
he's ever had.
yeah. No. Yeah. That's true. Matt Roller last week. Nathan Jones
Yeah,
this
why do
week.
we keep talking about young writers? Dan Norcross always gets upset about that. He's always like, "Oh, they're going to take our jobs." I was like, good on them if they do.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And
They
I
can
mean,
stay in the shitty hotels. I'll just
exactly about time. Yeah. About time they did. I mean, I'm still gonna do that. But
I'm really looking forward
mm,
to it. It's a quite full-on period for me because even if you count tonight, the 2-day T20 game that I've just been involved with,
yeah.
but it's what 7 tests in about 8.5 weeks. I want
Yeah.
to say,
In
but
two
also
months.
it's
I mean, June 1st to July 31st, there are 7 tests in England. Yeah,
yeah,
it's just
and it's also the fact that it's
eight when you count the women's Ashes test as well. Sorry.
oh
Yeah.
god, yeah. I don't. I won't even. I wouldn't even imagine I'd be able to watch that on TV, let alone cover that at all. But
Yeah.
the other thing is that it's 4 different teams as well, which is a
Mm,
really. Do you know what I mean? Like there's just so like I'm like, oh
it
great, I'm
is.
gonna write this about Ireland. Then I'm like, I've only got one test of them. There's like,
Yeah.
oh, I've got all this right about India. Oh, again, one test. So I can't write
Yeah.
about Australia or England for the first 2 tests because I've got
Oh, you
so
can't.
much to do for the rest of the
I
summer.
know. Honestly, it's been even for the first time ever in my touring career. I'm feeling a little anxious because again, like you keep thinking Ashes because it's like an Ashes tour in a way. But then you're like, wait, the first people I'll bump into are gonna be Rohit Sharma
Mhm.
and and some Indian players gonna come and ask me to do a Rohit Sharma impersonation. That's like it's like I'm going back in time in a way. Like, it's gonna be
Mm.
Rahul Dravid and Ashwin and Kohli,
Well, I'm
and
going to be walking
then
around I'm going to be walking around the corner of my house, 10, 15 minutes up the road.
yeah,
I think the first interview is David Warner, so that's going to be weird enough because we used to work together, right? I'll
yeah.
be one of like 3 journalists there, and then I'm going straight to Lords to hopefully catch the first ball of that game
Hmm.
over there. Yeah, the whole thing, I'm a bit with you. It just, I don't know, it just feels so bizarre. And, on top of that, you've got something like the Jason Roy stories just happened. Even that Shaheen Afridi thing we're talking about. It's just crazy how many different things seem to be happening all at the one time in cricket altogether. Anyway, we'll have one more quick break, and then after that break, we will come back and we'll talk a little bit WTC. Let me tell you a story. When I was a kid, people would ask my dad if he wanted me to be Viv Richards, and he always said no. He wanted me to be Boycott because apparently he liked boring things. But anyway, it turned out I could be neither. But thanks to Bodyline t-shirts, I can wear clothes showing both players. The Boycott Stick of Rhubarb is one of my favourite t-shirts. I really like the design. And it's not the only one I love. There's also a WG Grace one where he's in a pedalo, which is a part of my everyday wardrobe now. But there are heaps of other cool shirts on this site. And you can search for them by nations or type, and they seem to add to them all the time. I'm a big fan of the Court Marsh Bold Lily in the Australian collection, and there's also a lovely Morning Everyone in honour of Richie Benaud's great greeting. The English area has the Fast Leg Theory shirt, which I think is a ripper. There's a couple of great West Indian ones I love, including this simple Viv Richards design, and a couple of Capel Dev t-shirts in the Indian section that I simply must have. I'm not saying that Bodyline t-shirts will have something that you will like, but I will say this: they got me to wear a Jeffrey Boycott inspired t-shirt. And that in itself is a minor miracle. Welcome back to Uncovered, Jarrod and Bharat. I don't really, partly because I am covering the Island Test match, I'm not sure how many thoughts I have. I have like a million things written up on my board about the 2 teams. But I don't really have like a clear narrative of going into that final. I haven't really even thought of who will win. Like, okay, you know what it's like? You get asked on TV and radio or on podcasts, but who do you think will win? I'm like, and I have to pretend that I have an opinion, whereas actually I'm like, I have no idea. I don't even know if Rahane's playing yet. Like, until I know about Rahane, I can't make a clear decision either way.
Yeah,
Right?
he decides what happens in India-Australia contest. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just haven't thought about it at all. It's not that I'm not excited about it, because I couldn't get accreditation, or maybe I didn't apply for the last World Test Championship. So I didn't go anyway. I remember not going. And so I'm quite excited to go to my first final. And you didn't go to the last one, did you? You weren't over here, were you? No, because Australia weren't playing, so you wouldn't have been here.
Yeah.
So there's a part of me that really, really wants to go to it, but it is a very different feeling to me. It's very rare that you and I haven't done something before.
Especially an ICC tournament,
Yeah.
or a big final. I think it adds to the whole World Test Championship. Like, and I was thinking about it this morning. Like, that would be one of the questions I would ask Rohit Sharma in a press conference. Like, they played an ICC world, like, finals, big tournament finals before, but this is so different, right? So you're playing one game, and it's not like and generally you talk about tournament finals, it happens like in the continuation, you're doing the same thing over and over
It's not
again,
like
right?
a Shield final, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, or a Ranji final, because then you've gone all the way through the season, and then at the end you play it. This is
Or any
like,
sport,
yeah.
like in all these other sports as well, which have long seasons, and you have a actual final in the end. And I'm not talking IPL, like 7-month long seasons, and then there's a final. There's still, like, you're doing the same thing. Like, you're still the same players, you're still doing the same thing. With the World Test Championship final, I guess it'll grow on us as it develops, or if it stays alive in the next few years. But it just feels too, like, staggered, right? Like, we had the India
Separated.
Australia test. Was that
Separated, right?
separated? Actually, you're right, and there is that separation, which adds to that anxiety I was talking about earlier. Like, how do you approach a World Test Championship final? Like, what what how do you build it up? Because also not to forget that neutral tests haven't been a thing, especially. I mean, there have been neutral tests in the subcontinent because of political reasons and
Yeah.
security reasons and all that over the years. The Asian Test Championship, for example, happened many years ago, but there have been no neutral tests elsewhere. I mean, yeah, I mean there were those neutral tests between Australia and Pakistan in 2010,
Yeah.
but
And
just generally,
Australia, South Africa in 1909,
I
1910.
mean, you have to go back a long
Yeah.
way, right?
I'm
Like,
trying.
yeah,
I think
so
that's right. It was roughly around that period anyway, when the ICC was formed.
yes, exactly. So I think that adds to the intrigue almost about how this will be played out. And also it's difficult, I guess, from the ICC perspective as well to build up that excitement. Look, we've just had the IPL final finish
Yeah.
now. I mean, last 2 hours ago or something, and we go dive straight into that, and it has nothing to do with the format itself.
Yeah.
It's just a different beast,
And
and
even if
it's
you promoted it, right? Like, let's say they
yeah.
went all in. Well, the English journalists are going to be like, yeah, we'll go to it, but we've got actually playing a test match this week,
If you're
right?
actually playing a test
And it
match,
would
and
make
then
the
like
ICC look worse if they promoted the World Test Championship final during that one of Ireland's few test matches, right? So,
especially because it's an associate or not an
yeah,
associate country,
no,
but like
but
a
the
former
last test
associate
nation
country,
or the last one of the last two test nations, right?
one of
So
the last two test nations. Yeah,
there's
it's a
no,
tricky.
there's like no winning for them in this, and there's not a
No.
lot they could do. I mean, I think Indians will turn up anyway, and I assume that there are a few Australians who have tacked on the extra
Yeah,
week.
yeah, yeah.
So it's probably quite handy that Indians travel, well, not travel, but will go to the game anyway. So there'll be a few thousand, as we saw in the New Zealand game.
Of
But more
course.
importantly, that there might be some Aussies there as well.
Mm.
England are good at going to matches, even if they're not in them,
Oh
compared to some
yeah,
of the
yeah,
other cricket
exactly. I mean,
nations.
the
So
Surrey faithful will be there, I'm sure, unless the ICC have taken away all the tickets from them. I don't know how it
it's
works.
a test match at the Oval, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
love test match cricket
Eh,
and you've got a day free, you're probably going to try and get down there, I would have thought.
And when was the last time they played a test match at the Oval in early June? Like that's a novelty to it as
Yeah.
well, right? Like yeah, so maybe they have, but not in
No, I
my
can't
living
think of
memory.
any. I mean, it's
Yeah,
usually the
exactly.
last test or,
It usually is
deep
always
in
in
the
August
summer.
to September.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and you're gonna get two Oval tests before the end of July. That's strange in itself if you think about it. So yeah, there is a lot to look forward to, and yeah, I think it's a juicy encounter at the risk of sounding like Ravi Shastri because
I
you don't
love
know.
Juicy.
Because yeah, I mean some of the questions popping up in our chat box here, who are the favorites? I mean, I guess you could say Australia are the favorites, and the only reason I would say that is because India have had some question marks about their batting, and I think early June Oval, the bowlers you think would have quite a bit of a say. So you think just purely because of that, and also because um, Australia's two main batters have spent the last month or so
Yeah.
batting in England, getting used to it. So has Pujara, of course. But Smith, we have two of the heavyweights in the batting lineup, both having spent time getting into that mode. So that's again plays into Australia's strengths, you would think, or their advantage. But I mean, you have Rahane back. You know his record against Australia. Will India stick with playing Shardul Thakur as the seeming all-rounder and play four fast bowlers and Ravindra Jadeja fresh of his IPL exploits, or does R Ashwin finally get that game in England
Mm.
that he's been waiting for so long now? So like
Was
I mean,
his
there are a lot of
last game the World Test Championship final?
it was in England anyway. Yeah.
Maybe that's
So
all he plays from now on. Just World Test Champion finals in England, and
exactly.
that's the only time he plays there. No, it's fascinating. You'll be over, so if people want to follow all your stuff, you'll be covering
Mm,
that game and then all the Ashes games
yeah.
after that. I will be covering Ireland first. I say Ireland because, as I said, I probably won't do anything about England. So pop
Yeah.
over to my channel if you're looking for something on Ireland. I'll save all the England stuff for the other 5 tests when I have to fill space. We got one question from the room though. Oh wait, I've got to bring it up, don't I? Aditya says, "What do you think about having playing T20 cricket with rubber or tennis balls professionally? Less injuries, cheap equipment per person, easy to promote." So this will happen.
Yeah.
I don't know how much, Aditya, you know about indoor cricket, but indoor cricket was really big in New Zealand, Australia, and South Africa for a period of time. It was even televised. Ian O'Brien, a dual international. Shane Harwood, a dual international in indoor and outdoor cricket. I think this is a better version of it, and I've watched it. When you see it on those sort of dusty maidans, and you see those tournaments.
Mm,
Occasionally I see them on
of
YouTube and
course. Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason why that won't happen. There's also caged cricket in the UK, which is very similar to indoor cricket again. I think we'll
Mm,
see as cricket becomes more global and more money goes into it, I actually think we'll see a bit of a return to those sorts of things, and there will be leagues. I don't think T20 cricket is ever going to be like that because there's too much money in T20 cricket, but there'll be other versions of it out there with tennis balls. In fact, indoor cricket it's a tennis ball, but in leather. I've got one on my desk, actually. So it stings when it hits you, but you don't need pads.
Oh, the rubber ball stings as well. Trust
Yeah.
me, the rubber balls that we use in India anyway. They're not. They don't sting as much as a proper cricket ball or a season ball, as we call them in India. But a rubber ball can, can hurt you. Like if it hits you in certain spots, it leaves a mark. And you're right. Tennis ball tournaments have been a huge deal in India and many parts of India for years and years and years. Right, like a lot of Indian cricketers coming through the ranks. I mean, Navdeep Saini played. Mohammad Siraj, I think a lot of them played a lot of tennis
Pakistan and
cricket.
Sri Lanka too. It doesn't seem to be as
Not
big
so
a
much
thing
in
in
Sri Lanka, but like
well, a lot of Sri Lankan is the beach cricket, and I don't know if you've ever been, but I've been to beach cricket leagues.
We played some beach cricket with a bunch of boys last year in Sri Lanka, and it didn't end up too well for the Australian team.
Yeah.
Trust me, there were some guys who smashed.
That's what I
all
mean.
of
I
us.
remember talking to a bunch of them, and they got off work. They get off work at 2:00, and they come and play in a proper league, and there was money, and there were bets, and all that sort of stuff happening.
Yeah, exactly.
So
the way it works in Mumbai or in many parts of India is a lot of money gets pumped in by politicians. The tennis ball tournaments get held alongside political rallies, and there are a lot of. I know a lot of people in India who make a living through just playing tennis ball tournaments. But so do you? I mean, they are professionals in a way. Like they're professional tennis ball creators. Maybe they don't earn in the millions, but they earn in the thousands and still make sure that everybody's fed at home.
I could see it being broadcast in the future. I
true.
could see there being little leagues and everything. Do you remember the beach cricket league that they played in Australia with former players? I remember Damien Fleming playing in
very much so.
Beach cricket leagues and all that sort of stuff. Just on the story of, we was on about the tape balls hurting. I forgot that I broke my finger playing indoor cricket. So the tennis ball still came back and absolutely shattered my finger.
Even a tennis ball can.
Look, those people hit them.
People, if you just hit the wrong part of your finger, especially, it can sting. And speaking of live streaming, I remember, I think we were in Indore, and Pete Lawler and Gideon were walking to the ground, and Pete Lawler showed me a video where he found a bunch of people playing cricket. It was Sunday morning, just in the parking lot of a mall in Indore, and that tournament was being live telecast on some YouTube channel, so it's already happening.
Yeah,
but it will eventually happen at a bigger scale for sure.
Yeah, I just think it needs a couple of bigger brands to come in and someone to buy it, and it becomes the tennis ball league of wherever, and that will just take it to another. People already like it. They like playing it. They go and watch it in crowds. It will happen, but it's not going to take over T20 cricket. It might be a supplement to it. Anyway, we better finish here, as I don't even know what time it is. I'm not even sure if the IPL finals finished. I feel like I'm still going through it.
I think it's
Bharat,
still going on.
I will see you in the person. I will
in the flesh.
You. I will smell you. And for everyone else, you'll see him next time he's on a podcast as well. But thank you very much. And we will see you again all very soon. A few years ago, I had a panic attack after ESPN Cricinfo made me their global writer. I'd earned that position, but I also felt like a fraud at the time because I didn't really understand how I wrote. I understand that there was a process and gears and different styles and things, but how it all came together felt a little bit random. And so I began to panic like a golfer with a natural swing, worried one day I'd just end up with the yips. And would my career be over? So I took my writing apart piece by piece until I understood it. And then I figured out I could teach others all the mistakes I had learned. So I started an online course where I tried to make it as cheap as possible so people like me would be able to afford it. It's called Fans with Laptops, and heaps of people from around the world have used it so far, from first-time writers all the way through to professionals trying to improve. I started with a simple plan to make each writer the best they could be. And from the feedback I've received over the years, it seems like the course does that. But after COVID, my career changed. I came to YouTube, started podcasts, wrote emails, and formed a new career on my own going forward. So I now had something else to offer, the multimedia side of things, social media and everything else. Not to mention that I was building everything up as an independent. And so I added all of that to my course. So if you have ever wanted to work in sports as a writer or podcaster or making videos or anything else, Fans with Laptops is the place to start. If you think you qualify as a fan and you have a laptop and you want to work in sport, click on the link.